Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the birth chart of Kanye West. This will be the first time that I've looked at his chart. I want to do it with you guys, so let's jump right in and find out if we can have some compassion and empathy for the man. Here we are. This is really interesting. One of the things that strikes me as rather obvious about Kanye West, on the one hand, he is quite brilliant, but on the other hand, he seems to have trouble at times discerning what thoughts or ideas in his head are brilliant and what thoughts and ideas in his head are not. So let's take a look at what in his chart could actually relate to that. The first thing that I see right off the bat is this T-square. See these red lines here that form like a triangle with Neptune, Moon, Jupiter, and the Sun. That is the very first thing that I see that makes me think about sort of that difficulty at discerning some of what he's feeling and thinking and some of the direction he wants to go. And Jupiter makes it bigger. Jupiter has that effect when it touches other planets or points in our chart. It can expand or make more prominent. So when I look at this Uranus opposed Venus, I think about his brilliance when it comes to music and art, right? Venus symbolizes, it can symbolize, one of the things that Venus symbolizes is art, beauty, creativity, particularly in Taurus. Creativity with the voice would be another association of Venus and Taurus. Now, Venus is at home in Taurus as well. Venus is the natural ruler of two signs, Taurus and Libra. Now let's take a look at one of the major conjunctions as far as transits right now that are affecting us all to a bit of an extreme degree. So we have Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in Capricorn. Capricorn can symbolize the structure of society, right? And even authority and power structure as well. So when we're speaking of structures, it's not just power and authority structure, but the structure of society as a whole. For Kanye, this Capricornian conjunction here happens to be right on his descendant within a few degrees. So this, along with his progressed moon right on the IC, tells me that his focus should be and he will be pulled more and more into his home life and his relationship. Now, we would hope that having this Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter conjunction over here in the descendant, that a breakup or upset in relationships won't necessarily be a manifestation of that type of transition or transformation. In some ways, I like to refer to transits as potential upgrades, right? It all just depends on what he chooses to do with this time period in his life. These cycles are quite prominent. Pluto over here in his 7th house will be here for a while. So this is a long-term type of focus or transformation and change. And what we hope for is transformation, evolution, change in the most positive way we can possibly conjure, right? Again, this depends on what one chooses to focus on and what we do with the potential. So Chiron and Lilith are transiting his 10th house right now. So we have a bit of a touch of potential wounding when it comes to career and legacy and being in the public view. And then we also have a sense of potential shame and being made to feel guilty for asserting oneself, putting oneself out there. Now, Aries here is the ruler of his 10th house. So this is an underlining psychological motivation that Kanye is quite used to. It's been here all of his life, right? We can take a look at Venus, Mars, part of fortune up here in the career house. Now, I would even say that his part of fortune here might be related in some way to the fact that he does derive a lot of pleasure from performing and being sort of out in the public's eye, right? Now, his natal Chiron is here in the 10th house as well. It's in the sign of Taurus. So we can have some wounding when it comes to our voice, our self-worth, and the criticism that might come along the way for what we choose to share and create and put out into the world. Venus and Mars are right here with his Chiron as well, so we see a bit of a mix of some of his creativity, his voice, also his self-assertiveness, the way he chooses to go about and push things forward in the world and make his own path, right? But again, this opposition that we have of Venus and Mars here with Uranus, so the Mars aspect of this opposition can represent some, let's just say Uranus touching these planets here in an opposition can create a bit of tension that tends to be released in the other. Now, a lot of people will see him as erratic, right? Unpredictable. Now let's take a look at his Lilith. Let's read a little bit about that. Now here we're specifically talking about Black Moon Lilith. We'll read a little bit here. Black Moon Lilith is not a planet or a body, but rather a point, and should not be confused with the asteroid Lilith. You can look up your Black Moon Lilith sign here. Now, let's talk about what it means. In your natal chart, where Lilith is by sign and house, an aspect is where you may have felt ashamed, shamed, ridiculed, stifled, deeply misunderstood, or repressed in some manner. For whatever reason, you are wary of expressing those traits or parts of your personality freely and unapologetically, and you can feel quite uncomfortable with people who are doing so. There can also be a binging and purging cycle involved with the traits of Lilith's sign or house, wherein we overdo or go all out, expressing these traits in extreme, then feel bad for doing so. This leads to a purging stage in which we reject or deprive ourselves of the traits. Eventually, the need for them is so strong that we go to extremes again, perpetuating this self-destructive cycle. To work through this, we need to learn to accept these traits in ourselves and express them in ways that we've transformed or made to fit our lives without fear or guilt. We may have too high expectations of ourselves in these areas, and we can convince ourselves we don't care. It's difficult to go there since fear and shame can be mixed in, but it's also empowering. All right, so let's take a look. If it's got it in the 11th house, we're gonna see what it says for Aquarius. In modern astrology, we tend to equate the houses with signs. I realize in some of the ancient traditions, they didn't do that, but we're gonna take a look and see what this might say. So Lilith in Aquarius, or the 11th house, has felt ashamed or off for wanting to be a part of a group, team, or community, for being one of the crowd, and can feel quite wary of people who seem to need these things. The answer is not to reject these basic needs, since this can result in binging and purging on a social level, going all out, feeling bad about it, hiding away, and then repeating the cycle again. Self-acceptance can help empower them and put an end to extremes of behavior in these areas. This can also apply to Lilith in the 11th house, which is what we're looking at here, right? So I can see this as relating. Let's take a look back. When Kanye said some things about slavery, right, and then also was supporting Donald Trump. Now, his support for Donald Trump, to me, was always about rebellion, right? It was rebellion of cancel culture, of the popular mentality of trying to shape and control how everyone thinks and feels and views things, right? So he was never going to be a lifelong Trump supporter, in my view. Now, the same thing goes for some of the erratic, crazy, seemingly crazy things that he says from time to time. There's a rebelliousness, there's an instinct to go against the grain, and that's also a part of his genius, as we know. Right? Now, being in the limelight, being famous, right? And this can include people who are internet famous, and it seems to be much worse on the internet, right? We're all kind of at least revolving around, or we're aware of and see a lot of adolescent type of behavior, the way that we criticize and pick on each other and troll and everything else and seeking attention. You know what I'm saying. So with all of these things that go on for Kanye, let's take a look back real quick. Jupiter right here is conjunct in his natal chart, the sun, right? So he's gonna have this tendency to be excessive in some way, right? Expansive, growth oriented. He's going to be very much about philosophy and truth seeking and trying to develop his own sort of internal compass and guidance system, right? And not necessarily listen to what everyone else is saying. So there's a bit of a contradiction, because generally speaking, with Gemini suns and people who have a lot of Gemini or third house emphasis in their chart might be quite concerned with what others think, right? Maybe quite concerned with the gossip or what sort of the group level is thinking and so forth. And Jupiter's not so happy doing that, in my opinion, right? And so let's take a look back at this opposition with Neptune. Neptune providing ample opportunity to have some illusions in Sagittarius, some theories, philosophies, higher ideals that might be easily hole punched, right? And so what I mean by this is Neptune can be rather elusive, right? So Neptune is the spirituality in a transcendent manner, right? Or in a transcendent sense. You can kind of think of this in real simple terms, that if we have our head in the clouds a lot and our feet are off the ground, there are times where we're going to be swept away by the clouds, by the breeze, our head's going to be in outer space, right? And we're going to need to really practice grounding back down to earth. Now, I would even say that where Kanye lives, sort of out away from everybody else and in the country, I'm guessing he lives there all the time now. Well, I think it was Montana. I can't remember for sure. But a part of that, I imagine, is a need to be connected and grounded, right? In a really earthly kind of sense, which is definitely something he needs. Now, we see some more Neptunian tendencies with this Pisces moon here, right? So this is some of the basics. This is some of the things that I would look at if I were doing a chart reading for an individual. I wouldn't just look for struggles, of course. I would also look for strengths, inherent strengths. And I would talk quite a bit about the nodal axis and sort of the evolutionary path of an individual at a soul level. So let's wrap it up for today. I hope all of you enjoyed this video. Please hit the subscribe button if you like this and want to see more videos. Also, give me a follow on Instagram, Twitter, and especially Twitch, where I give free birth chart readings when I go live. Right now, I'm still working on my schedule, so stick with me. Give me a follow on Twitch. If you haven't been to Twitch before, I think you're going to love it. So give me a follow. You can even subscribe with an Amazon Prime account. And I hope to see you soon. Bye.